Why you can't say no. Think about the last time someone asked you for a favor that you did not really want to do because deep inside you already knew the answer and you wanted to say no. But instead you smiled, agreed immediately, and only later realized that you had once again ignored your own needs because disappointing someone else felt more uncomfortable than disappointing yourself. Most people believe this happens because they are too kind or too polite. But the real reason is much deeper, because your brain was designed to avoid rejection long before modern society existed. And thousands of years ago, being accepted by your group meant survival, while being rejected could mean death. So your nervous system slowly learned to associate approval with safety and rejection with danger, even though that danger almost never exists anymore. This is why saying no can make your heart beat faster even when nothing serious is happening. Because your brain reacts to social discomfort as if it were protecting you from something much bigger than an awkward conversation. And while you know logically that refusing a small request is completely normal, another part of your mind is trying to keep everyone around you happy at any cost. The problem is that every unnecessary yes quietly becomes a no to something much more important. Because every minute you spend living someone else's priorities is a minute that disappears from your own life. And over weeks, months and years, those small decisions slowly shape the person you become without you even noticing. Many people spend decades believing that being available all the time makes them a better friend, a better employee, or a better partner. But the opposite often happens, because when you always agree, people quickly stop seeing your effort as something special. And instead begin expecting it, as if your time had no value at all. The strange part is that people usually respect clear boundaries far more than endless agreement. Because someone who says yes to everything becomes predictable. While someone who chooses carefully makes every yes feel meaningful and valuable. That does not mean you should become selfish or stop helping others. Because kindness is one of the most valuable qualities a person can have. But real kindness is always a choice. And the moment it becomes an obligation, it slowly turns into exhaustion, frustration, and silent resentment. There is another reason why saying no feels so uncomfortable, and it has nothing to do with confidence, because even people who appear strong sometimes struggle with exactly the same problem. As they worry about losing opportunities, damaging relationships, or creating unnecessary conflict. And because of those fears, they continue saying yes even when every part of them wants to refuse. The interesting part is that most of those fears never become reality. Because people spend far more time thinking about themselves than thinking about you. And while you might replay one uncomfortable conversation in your head for several days, the other person often forgets about it before the day is over. Which means the anxiety you feel before saying no is usually much bigger than the consequences that actually follow. Imagine carrying a backpack and every single day someone places one small stone inside it. Because one stone does not feel heavy, you decide not to complain. And the next day another stone appears, and then another and another. Until months later the backpack becomes almost impossible to carry. And you begin wondering why you feel tired all the time, even though nothing dramatic ever happened. Because the weight was never created by one big decision, but by hundreds of tiny moments when you ignored what you truly wanted. Life works exactly the same way, because burnout rarely arrives overnight. And resentment rarely appears after one favor. Instead, they slowly grow through small choices that seem harmless in the moment but become overwhelming when combined together. And this is why learning to say no is not about protecting one afternoon or one weekend, but about protecting the direction of your entire life. Many successful people have one habit that separates them from everyone else. Because before they commit to anything, they first ask themselves what they must give up in return, since every opportunity has a hidden cost. And while most people only look at what they might gain, highly effective people also think about what they might lose. Because time spent in one place can never be spent somewhere else. This simple change in perspective transforms decision-making. Because instead of asking, "Should I help this person?" you begin asking, "Is this the best possible use of my limited time and energy?" And once you start thinking this way, you quickly realize that saying yes is never free. Because every commitment quietly replaces another possibility that could have been more meaningful. You may also notice that people who constantly demand your attention often become uncomfortable when you finally establish boundaries. And that reaction can be confusing, because you expected understanding but instead you receive frustration. However, this does not always mean they are bad people. Because they simply became accustomed to unlimited access to your time. And every change requires adjustment. Think about a store that suddenly changes its opening hours. Because customers who were used to arriving late may become annoyed at first. But eventually they adapt and continue shopping. The same thing happens in relationships. Because people learn how to treat you based on what you consistently allow. And if you have spent years saying yes to everything, they will naturally need time to adjust when you begin respecting your own limits. One of the biggest mistakes people make is believing that confidence comes first and boundaries come later. But the truth is almost the opposite. Because confidence grows every single time you keep a promise to yourself. And each honest no proves that your own priorities matter. Which slowly changes the way you see yourself until protecting your time no longer feels selfish but simply normal. The next time someone asks you for something, resist the urge to answer immediately. And instead give yourself a moment. Because one short pause is often enough to separate what you truly want from what guilt is trying to convince you to do. And then ask yourself one simple question. If I felt absolutely no guilt and no fear, what would I choose? Because the answer that appears first is usually the honest one. And learning to trust that answer is one of the most powerful skills you can develop. There will always be another request, another invitation, another favor, and another opportunity to put someone else's needs ahead of your own. But there will never be another version of today, because once this day is gone, it is gone forever. And no amount of money, success, or popularity can ever buy it back. Which is exactly why your attention is the most valuable thing you own. So the next time you hesitate before saying no, remember that you are not choosing between kindness and selfishness, but between living intentionally and living automatically. Because every decision either brings you closer to the life you truly want or quietly moves you further away. And although one small answer may seem unimportant today, the person you become 5 years from now will be shaped by thousands of those answers made one after another until they eventually become your life. And in the end, every confident person you admire learned exactly the same lesson. Because they discovered that saying no is not about rejecting other people but about protecting the limited time, energy, and attention that make your life unique. And every honest no creates space for a much more meaningful yes. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, take a moment to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who might need to hear this message. Because sometimes one simple idea can completely change the way a person sees their life and remembers that their time, energy, and peace of mind are worth protecting. Thank you so much for watching, and I truly appreciate you spending these minutes with me. Take care of yourself, keep choosing what truly matters, and I will see you in the next video.